Hello, and welcome to Time of Death. I'm Ris.
And I'm Dee.
And for those of you who are new here, welcome. We are a true crime podcast hosted by two nurses who have medical and psychiatric backgrounds, and we like to discuss true crime cases that have a heavy medical influence or where the medical professional is at the center of the case. We post weekly on Wednesdays. So if you're listening to this today, this is episode 22.
Yeah, you're even. I'm odd.
You are odd.
We're also sisters.
We're also sisters.
We're also sisters. And Ris drives me nuts. The Ris is the glue of the podcast.
And what are you?
I'm the rubber. Because I bend with it. The Ris is the glue. I'm the rubber. Ris holds it together and I bend with it.
She is pretty flexible.
Ew. Such a creepy comment to me. That is so creepy. I feel very violated on this podcast right now. I'm actually rigid as a board.
All right, let's do this. So, I recently watched Dead Asleep on Hulu. Have you seen that? It's a documentary.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So, that's how I found out about this case.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched the documentary, and then in research, I found out that the family of the victim, her name is Brooke Preston, they created a petition to remove it from Hulu more than 2 years ago. So the documentary is biased to the killer's side, like pretty blatantly. Yeah. The family was asked to provide input, but they found out it was going to focus primarily on defending the killer and not on their
victim,
their loved one. So they declined wanting to participate, understandably so.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they're like, we really are not comfortable with the documentary being aired. Like, we don't support it at all, which I get. And if you can sign the petition and donate to increase awareness about this, the link is in the show notes. And we are going to focus more on the victim. The defense is kind of a bizarre case. So we are going to talk about it, but we're not doing this as a, oh my goodness, is he innocent? He's not innocent. He's guilty, and he was found guilty. So that's just my foreshadowing to this case.
Stick to your guns, Ris.
Yeah. And that's about it. So
I like that you are pro-victim. I like that a lot.
I tend to be.
Yeah, you definitely tend to be.
I think most people do, and you do as well.
Thank you. Because we're nurses.
We are.
Well, that's not the only reason, but that's a big reason, probably. Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, so in March 2017, a 24-year-old Randy Herman called the police, and he calmly told them that someone had been murdered. He continues, I'm at Haverhill Park. Just send the police. It was me. Randy had just murdered one of his best friends right before making this phone call. And he said that the only thing he remembered was looking down at his victim while he held his bloody hunting knife that typically sat at his bedside, and he was covered in blood just like the lifeless body on the floor before him.
Who was the body?
21-year-old Brooke Preston was one of Randy's best friends. The two of them, along with Brooke's sister Jordan, lived together in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Wait, I think I freaking heard about this.
You probably have. It's very popular. So Brooke was a beautiful person. She was very full of life. She was spunky, passionate. She was a friend to all. She was liked by everyone that she came across. Mm. She was the life of the party. She was very active on social media, and she would make posts often about her family members. They were very, very close. They'd have weekly family dinners, just a very strong family bonds. She was 2 years younger than her sister Jordan, and Jordan considered them best friends. They were very close. They got along really well, and they were always together. Brooke was affectionately called Cookie, or Little Princess, by her loved ones. She really loves sparkly
Cute.
things. I know. She loves sparkly things, and she had a tattoo that read, "The sky is the limit." So, Randy Herman was born in 1993. He grew up in a single parent home with his mom, Kathy, and his sister, Amanda. And he was described as being pretty mellow. The three of them lived in Pennsylvania, but they moved often because his mom kept getting new jobs and, was really trying to make the ends meet. So she would work like 3 jobs at a time. And so they were bouncing around. They spent a lot of time with babysitters. Kathy and Randy's father, Randy Sr., had a pretty toxic relationship. He was a heavy drinker. There was some physical abuse as well. And Randy and Amanda's relationship with their dad was strained. He lived only like 40 minutes to an hour away, but he would make excuses often about why he couldn't come see them. So I think there was definitely a sense of rejection from their father. And then when the documentary said that when Amanda was older, she would take care of herself, didn't need supervision, and that was when their dad offered for her to live with them. So there was just a sense of rejection in Randy instilled.
Well, it's interesting that she was saying that she didn't need any parental supervision, and he's like, "Oh yeah, like that is your invite. That is the key ticket because I'm not trying to be a parent, and I'm not trying to get off the hook at the same time."
Yeah, I don't want to parent you. I just want you to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So I don't have to deal with it. So Randy met Jordan and Brooke Preston in Laceyville, and they became friends pretty quickly when they were like preteens, teenagers, and they got along really well. And he even went to a few of their family dinners. In 2011, he graduated from high school and he began to attend Mansfield University. And he studied criminal justice there, ironically. And he also worked at a county jail as a corrections officer. In August 2013, though, he lost his job because he was charged with possession of marijuana. And soon after that, he got his first DUI, one of 2. So after this, Randy moved back in with his mom after dropping out of college, and he started working at a meat processing plant. And he was in charge of removing meat off of the bone and then just moving it onto a conveyor belt. So he was on probation, but in May 2014, he was arrested again with another DUI and sentenced to 1 month in jail after leaving his sister's wedding reception drunk.
I wonder if there's any studies about DUIs being a precursor for like violence. It's such a selfish act.
But also, I get where you're going with that, and I like that idea. I'd like to look more into it. But also, there is a link between substance abuse and impulsivity. And so you're more likely to do things that you typically wouldn't. So I would say violence falls into that.
Definitely.
In February 2015, Randy's dad was charged with the murder of his girlfriend. And he went out on the lam. He drove to Alabama and spent 2 months in hiding before committing suicide. And the police were like getting pretty close to tracking him down at that point. So he committed suicide. And Randy talks about in the documentary how he was going through like a complicated range of emotions. He's like, oh, it's still my dad, but like I'm not close with him. And you know what? That's a lot to go through. I understand that part. He was drinking. He was increased depression. He was feeling really stagnant during this time. He was also a pretty shy guy. I think he was pretty overweight and self-conscious. In May 2016, Brooke's sister Jordan had a new job opportunity in West Palm Beach, Florida. So she moved to West Palm Beach, and then Brooke ended up moving shortly after. And Brooke wanted to finish her degree up at the State College of Florida. So Randy and Jordan were close friends, as we know. The two would often drink beer over FaceTime, and they joke about how Randy was going to come too. And it became serious pretty quick that he was going to move down there. He viewed it as a fresh start. His life really hadn't been going the way he wanted in Pennsylvania. You know, he had some trouble with drug abuse, substance abuse. He was in trouble with the law. So he decided to come along too. And incidentally, he had also just received $25,000 from his dad's inheritance. So he's like, I got all this money. Like, I'm going to go there, make a brand new start. And on June 30th, 2016, Randy posts on Facebook, "Well, to my friends and family that I haven't already told, I'm excited to announce that I'll be starting the next chapter of my life in West Palm Beach, Florida. I'll be leaving Pennsylvania in just 2 short weeks." So July 2016, a couple weeks after he posted that, he makes the move. He drives 20 hours to West Palm Beach. So Randy, Jordan, and Brooke decide to move in together. They find a 3-bedroom house on Sarrazin Drive in West Palm Beach. And it was a 1-level house. They each had their own bedroom. They had 1 bathroom, which they shared. And it was just started off as a good living situation for them all. So Randy worked selling internet and cable services. So he did like marketing for a bit. So he's doing that when he gets to West Palm Beach, but he quits about 4 months after he starts. His pay was based off commission and he did not like how it fluctuated. So he's like, all right, I'm not going to do it anymore. Randy was a pretty big drinker and he also used drugs as well. He would stay up all night drinking and then sleep all through the day. And he would spend up to like $200 a night on drugs, alcohol. He'd use cocaine. He described it as like a party lifestyle. So as you probably figured out, his inheritance didn't last very long. So he ran out of money within like 3 months. Brooke had been dating a man named Brian for the past few years, and they were really happy together. She even mentioned to her parent that they had begun talking about getting engaged. In 2016, Brian had a new career opportunity in Buffalo, New York, and in December 2016, so this is after Jordan, Brooke, and Randy were all living together for a bit, Brooke and Brian decided to move in together, and she moved to Buffalo in December. She had graduated with her associates at the state college in Florida, and she got a new job in Buffalo. So she was ready to like start this new chapter. She had left some belongings at her home in Florida, including her car in West Palm Beach. And so one weekend in March 2017, she decided to come back to visit her friends and, you know, get her last stuff. And then she was planning on driving her car from West Palm Beach to Buffalo. 2 weeks before Brooke's scheduled visit, Randy had been trying to get clean. So mind you, he's also run out of money. So he was just like not drinking. He was broke and he had been trying to get clean, abstain from drug and alcohol use, and appear more presentable for Brooke. So I think it kind of was a mix of, all right, I'm going to like start being a better, like more presentable version of myself, but also I don't have this money to afford these drugs and the drugs and alcohol that I'm used to. So I think it was a mixture of both there. Okay, so we're going to talk about the days leading up to the crime. On March 23rd, 2017. So this is the Thursday before Brooke's murder. Jordan actually had left that day to visit her boyfriend in Colorado, and Brooke was, of course, coming back to Florida to get her stuff, and Randy woke up at 3 a.m. He picked her up at Fort Lauderdale Airport, and he said he dropped her off at their house, and then he decided to go to the beach to see the sunrise. The next day, Friday, March 24th, Brooke and Randy stopped at the liquor store on the way to the beach to pick up a 12-pack of Bud Light and a bottle of champagne. And then they spent the day at the beach. So they were drinking heavily all throughout the day. Then they left the beach. They stopped at the liquor store again for 2 more 12-packs. And then they went home. They kept drinking. Randy describes himself as being heavily intoxicated at this point, and he says the last thing he remembers is that he was drinking with Brooke on the porch. And he reports drinking about 30 beers that day. That same night, Brooke texts their mutual friend, Kyle, to come pick her up. She says that Randy is getting out of control. She wrote, "Please pick me up and bring me somewhere. Ready to kill Randy already." And Kyle replies, "Oh, geez, why?" And she writes, "He's being belligerent and stumbling all over, pissing me off." Kyle arrived at the house and he saw a very intoxicated Randy. He was stumbling around. He's drinking more and more. And then Randy wandered away somewhere in the house. Brooke went into her bedroom to gather her stuff that she needed for the night at Kyle's. So her and Kyle decided, okay, we're just going to have you come stay at my house. Then in the morning, you're just going to take your car and drive to Buffalo. So she went in the bedroom to pack her stuff up. And she said that when she went in her bedroom, she saw Randy in her closet and he was naked, like crouched in the closet with his finger over his mouth, like the quiet sign, like the shh sign. Geez. So she rushed right out of the room. She was very uncomfortable and they left the house. She went with Kyle and she just was really startled after that, reasonably so. Okay, the day of the crime, the next morning, Saturday, March 25th, Brooke came back to their house to get a few more things. And then Randy woke up. He said he woke up feeling hungover that morning, went outside his bedroom, and he ran into Brooke, who was packing up some last few things before she went to Buffalo. And so they chatted for a minute, and then he went back to bed, he said. Around 7:30, Kyle and Brooke go to get breakfast, and Randy messages to ask where she went, and she replied that they were going for breakfast. She extends an invitation to him, and he's like, "No, my head hurts, but come say goodbye before you go." She says, "I will text you before." At 7:55, he says, "Awesome. You might have to wake me up again. LMAO. I got something for you to give to Brian, please." So Brandy says that he had a t-shirt that he wanted to give to Brooke's boyfriend. And it was like a memorial t-shirt for their friend who was hit by a car and killed while he was drunk.
You know, it's almost, he was naked in her room. She knows that she has a boyfriend. It sounds like he had some unrequited love kind of thing.
I agree. And I think he was like at his rock bottom.
Yeah.
And she was, you know, she had a lot more going on in her life. She had a long-term boyfriend. Like, she was going to be engaged. She was making a move. She was financially independent. And he's like
stagnant,
just sitting there drunk, depressed. You know what I mean? Like, he was stuck. And I think he resented her for that, was envious of it. And also he had feelings for her that he never
came to terms with.
And that night he kind of presented himself when he was drunk.
And she rejected him.
Naked. And she rejected him and he went haywire. So that's what I think happened. That's not what he says happened, but I think we'll get into that.
Freaking, I mean, he could say whatever he wants, but the intention is clearly there.
Exactly. About a half hour later at 8:35, video surveillance shows that Brooke arrived to their house and she enters the house. Randy says that the next thing he remembers is her calling his name. So he sat up in bed. She came into his bedroom. This is all per Randy. He told her where the t-shirt was. She picked it up. She smiled. She said, "Thank you." They hugged, said goodbye. And then he says that she shut the door. He laid back down and he says that was the last thing he remembers before he came to over her body while holding his own hunting knife. At 8:49, a neighbor reported that they heard screaming. A couple other neighbors heard screaming as well. No one called 911 though.
And the video camera shows her going in at 8:35.
Yeah. Brooke was stabbed 25 times on her throat, abdomen, back, face, neck. Investigators, this is from the documentary, they said that the attack began at the end of the hall where the bedrooms were located, and it continued down the hallway into the living room by the fireplace. More stabbing was happening, and then she was dragged back to the hallway. So she went through it, and she was dragged all over and stabbed multiple times. She was then wrapped in a quilt by Randy, and this could be done in an effort, to either he doesn't want to look at her face after what he did, or he wants to transport her body.
Mm.
So Randy said, of course, he came to while standing over her. He said he did not remember what he had done. He just assumed, I'm the only other person in this house. I'm holding this knife covered in blood. She's right in front of me. Like, I think I did it. I'm the one that did it.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't tell you why. I can't tell you what happened. Like, I can't remember, he says. So he goes to the bathroom after he comes to. He tries to clean himself up a little bit. He can't really. He's still got blood on himself. Randy was seen entering Brooke's car at 8:57. The entire crime took 22 minutes from when Brooke entered the house to Randy leaving the house. He gets to Haverhill Park, which is about a mile from their house. And that's when he makes the 911 call and he confesses to the crime.
So he transported her body.
No.
He did not. So he just put her in a quilt.
He just put her in a quilt and left her there. Or he just draped a quilt over her body. Mm-hmm. He did not move her body that we know of.
And then he removed himself from the situation using her car.
Yeah, he took her keys and then drove away using her car to get to the park.
Interesting. I mean, obviously very tragic and unfortunate, but the thought process behind that is bizarre.
I know, yeah. So, continuing on, the police get there and they start questioning him. He says he can't remember what happened, but it was a gruesome scene. Blood is everywhere. He has injuries on his arms, his hands, his chest. These are defensive wounds by Brooke. Brooke fought hard to get away from him. The knife was found, of course, in the bathroom. It was covered in blood. It had Randy's fingerprints on them. Police are like, listen, her blood is on your socks. Her blood is literally on your hands. Your skin is underneath her fingernails. You placed the 911 call. Like, you did this. Randy was really quiet and he appeared very distraught for police. He kept calling himself a bad person, a monster. He was mumbling that to himself. When Brooke's mom and stepfather arrived, they saw a sign indicating homicide on the door. They already knew that she was likely dead, but they did not know it was homicide. And her mom's like, you could just tell she's very shaken up. She's like, did you see, there's homicide on the door? That means someone killed her. And she's in shock, and of course. And she's confused at first. She's like, well, yeah, of course, Randy, placed a 911 call, they're friends. And she doesn't really connect that he's the one that did this at first. She's like, because it's, how are you supposed to, digest that information? Yeah. And Jordan, Brooke's sister, was also interviewed. She was also shocked. The documentary focuses on how genuine, quiet, mellow, soft-spoken he is, but it's definitely, it's kind of gross when you think about it because it's painting him as so innocent and it just dismisses everything that he did to Brooke. Randy denied sexual interest in Brooke. He said there was no romantic interest.
On her part.
I'm sorry?
On her part.
On her part. He remarks she was like my sister. He said Jordan and her were like my sisters. There was never any relationship beyond that. We never fought. And Jordan also says, no, Randy was never violent. There was never any sexual tension, no sexual relationship between the three of us at all. Or any other really issues. They all got along well. Police are thinking that he may have tried to make a move. Maybe she rejected him. Things turned sour. One of Randy's friends in the documentary, his name's Corbin, he thought that Randy liked her more than a friend. So there's one viewpoint. Everyone else was adamantly no, we're Randy said, no, we were just friends, nothing else. His mom was like, no. And that's about it. But
he's a red-blooded American male.
He is. He's a hunter.
He definitely, I think that biologically a lot of men, and I shouldn't use generalizations, but a lot of red-blooded American males are programmed to have sex. You don't have to necessarily like that person to be attracted to them. You don't have to have a
That's
crush.
true.
I mean, he didn't have to like her in order to want to have sex with her.
I think he maybe like buried his feelings for the girls,
Roommates.
and then he was kind of leaning towards like having a crush on Brooke. I think he really genuinely liked Brooke, and she was about to move. She was gonna go start a new life with another man.
Boyfriend,
Like
yeah.
he's like, okay, like
Threatened.
yeah, he felt threatened, and he's like, all right, I guess like if
shoot
I
my
can't
shot.
have you, no one else can. You know what I mean?
Well, if you like someone and you're freaking living with them, shoot your shot in an appropriate way. Don't, and recognize there's a chance you might get rejected, but when you repress that stuff,
Yeah.
shh. Like,
I don't know what I would have done if I ever saw
I would
that.
have slammed that closet shut.
Me too.
And I would have taken a picture.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, that would make my skin crawl.
That would make me so nervous and so scared.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised she went there by herself, to be honest with you.
Yeah. But also, like, she's known him since they were little. Like, I don't think no one knew he was capable of anything like
But
this.
you're hanging out naked in my closet.
Yeah.
Like,
No, that was really creepy.
That's super creepy, and that it would make me very uncomfortable. But I looked at the pictures on our little pizza hiatus. She's a beautiful girl.
She's beautiful.
She's a beautiful girl. He's kind of dorky looking.
Yeah, he's kind of dorky.
She's way above his league.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like you said, probably had a crush that he tried to repress and, not come to terms with, and throw that in substances and jealousy and anger and frustration as his dad modeling a behavior.
And I think he felt like a lot of rage with the rejection too. Like, I think he was outraged. Like, no, I cannot handle this. You know what I mean? Like, my
face.
Yeah.
To disfigure her face, it's a very personal and intimate, angry statement to make. Yeah. And she is a beautiful girl.
That's true. I didn't think of that part, but yeah, no, he was probably trying to mar her.
Oh yeah.
So he doesn't have money to pay for a lawyer. So a public defender was assigned to him, and public defender's like, okay, well, I'm at a loss. Like, he doesn't know really how to defend him. His mom is adamant, like, there's no way he did this. Like, she was really desperate to come up with a reason, and she was like, wait, what about sleepwalking?
Oh my God.
Or initially it was dismissed by the defense team, and also Randy was dismissive of it as well. He's like, no, I don't. Defense involves a psychologist, and he was a trauma specialist. His name was Dr. Charles Ewing. And he and Randy talk for a few hours. Dr. Ewing is like checking him, any history of mental illness. He's like, okay, any history of seizures, headaches, sleepwalking. And Randy's like, yes, well, actually, I have sleptwalk as a kid. Amanda and Kathy, his sister and his mom, said that he has sleepwalked when he was younger. Kathy remembers like 2 or 3 times that he sleepwalked, I guess. Kathy said, like, one night her and Amanda were awake in the kitchen. Randy was asleep, but he had come into the kitchen, climbed up on the counter. He grabbed some pancake mix, and they're like, well, what are you doing, Randy? And Randy didn't answer. And then another time when Randy was 10, Kathy worked at a bar next door to their house. Randy was really familiar with the layout of the neighborhood, so he had gotten up in his sleepwalked, rode his bike to the bar, came in, laid his head up on the bar table, and his mom's like, what are you doing here? And he just didn't say anything, got up, rode his bike home. And his sister also said that, in the wintertime, they kept plastic over the windows and like pick at the plastic in his sleep and try to like get out. So they're like, okay, well, has a history of sleepwalking.
Did he ever kill one of their pets or try to kill them when he was sleepwalking, I wonder?
Well, see, here's the thing. This documentary brings up all these sleep specialists, like psychologists, One of them, Dr. Mark Pressman, he's like, okay, sleepwalking, they're not conscious of their actions. They are able to like perform a set of related behaviors.
Killing being one of those related behaviors, right?
Yeah. Well, they're saying they're not conscious, so they aren't able to, something like triggers them. Anyway, it's like this whole, so they're saying like, oh, potentially they can kill someone in their sleep. Like someone sleepwalking can kill someone. So, all right, here on the side that we're sticking on, sexual motivation. Okay. Beside his bed, there were fuzzy handcuffs and a knife. And someone in the documentary mentioned that he had tied women down before and they liked it. And, you know, here we have the idea he was in love with her. You know, she friend zoned him. He was going to be leaving, moving in with a lover. Like, now's his chance to shoot his shot. Here's the thing, though. Brooke was stabbed 25 times.
I know.
She had defensive wounds. Mm-hmm. She struggled. She fought. He had defensive wounds on his hands, his chest, his arms. And it was a pretty long time for him to kill her, like at least a few minutes. Mm-hmm. She was dragged like down the hallway, continuously stabbed, dragged back into the hallway. Like, that's a lot of freaking effort and a lot of coordination. And you're telling me he's sleepwalked through this murder? And how do you not wake up?
I honestly think that the pink fuzzy handcuffs versus the knife, maybe he in his sleep reached for the wrong thing. It's just, it does not work. It does not work. Because even if he handcuffed her, if it's something he does when he's, you know, in the real world, not the dream world, like, I can't wrap my brain around this defense.
No, because, you know, if this were the defense that they're going to go with, which they did.
Freaking weak sauce.
Then he, you know, in his sleep, while he was sleepwalking, he grabbed the knife. He got her. He stabbed her. Chased her down, dragged her. Like, you're telling me you did all of that when you were sleeping? Like, this is like a last
bullshit
ditch effort to get away.
Well, you know, I'm going to be real with you. Sometimes, even, and this might sound very heartless, if you're sleepwalking and you sleepwalk right off of the building, yes, you were sleepwalking, but the result is the same.
Mm-hmm.
You're falling off the building. Even if you sleepwalk and kill someone, at the end of the day, you still killed someone.
Here's also another thing I found interesting. This guy, he made a YouTube video. Dr. Todd Grande said that, you know, no one would have batted an eye if Brooke had survived. Like, if she said, no, like, he had come at me, he was attacking me, he stabbed me 25 times. Like, he's like, how is it that when she doesn't have a voice anymore, this is plausible?
Yeah.
Like, on some level. How is that? You know what I mean? But
he admitted it.
He did.
He admitted it.
Yep.
Let him sit in jail. Have him go under hypnosis. Have him go under hypnosis and recover these memories. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, his brain is probably protecting itself.
Yeah. He just was using it as a last ditch excuse.
And there's no remorse. It'd be one thing if he did it and had remorse and said, hey, I you know, I did do this. I'm so sorry. I loved your daughter. I couldn't handle it. I would have much more respect for that than I don't remember.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to own up to your shit 100%.
Yeah.
Don't rationalize. That's my favorite freaking word. Don't rationalize. Own up. No buts.
So initially, defense is trying to reach a plea bargain, and he was offered 50 years. And Randy's like, nah.
He said no?
He said, nah. I'm going to go to trial, and I want to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. So his defense team is like, okay. So the documentary points out how the defense case was like diminished capacity basis might work, but Florida has no diminished capacity defense. So they began to like look at sleepwalking as defense, and they're like, oh, the DSM-5 recognizes sleepwalking as a mental disease.
Get the hell out of here. I know the DSM-5 TR. I know that. Text revision. The fact that it's not the Bible. It's not the Bible.
Mhm.
It's suggestions. It's not black and white. It's shades of gray. And this is something that is clearly black and white.
No. So they're like, okay, well, also there have been cases of sleepwalking murderers. Like, it's been used in other states as a defense, and they've been found not guilty. Not yet in Florida, but like, let's go for it. So they try
Wow.
it.
I hope they shot that shit down.
On May 1st, 2019, the trial began. So this is 2 years after the murders occurred. Randy was charged with first-degree murder. He is age 26 at this point. And a couple interesting things happened during this trial. So Jordan ended up taking the stand for the defense. And this was interesting because normally a family member of the victim is not going to be testifying for the defense. And they're using it as like oh, she was supportive of Randy. Like, there's no way. Like, she thinks he couldn't have done this. And after when she wrote, about how they wanted to take the documentary off Hulu, she's like, hold on a second. I was threatened with a subpoena if I didn't testify. That's why I testified. And she's like, no, we do not support this guy at all.
Whoa. So what did she testify?
During her testimony, she denies any romantic, sexual interest in herself or her sister coming from Randy. And she was also asked what it was like living together and how, they had to share that one bathroom. And, they'd multitask in the bathroom. So sometimes they'd be in there semi-clothed. One person would be peeing. One person would be brushing their teeth. Like how it is when you're living with someone who you're like family with. You know what I mean?
But how could she testify about his feelings? Isn't that
She didn't
hearsay?
testify about his feelings. She said she wasn't aware of any sexual or romantic interest from Randy to her and her sister.
I feel like that's not fair for them to ask.
Or like any romantic relationship between the two of them. I don't know the exact wording. Anyway.
That's just so slimy. This was her sister, and they really put that. Yep. That defense is disgusting. They must have been desperate to do something like that.
So actually, Randy took the stand too.
Wow.
And this is pretty rare for those of you who don't know. So back when he committed the crime, do you remember I mentioned how he was a little overweight? He's kind of sheepish looking. He had lost quite a bit of weight, and he looked very boyish. He was very small stature. He looked very meek, and the defense really wanted them to kind of feel sorry for him, like have that pity angle. And there was quite a bit of talk about Randy's mental health at the time of the murder. He was dealing with his addiction. He was drinking heavily. He was spending all his inheritance. He's talking about how like he would go through periods of blacking out after drinking all night. He was partying all night, sleeping all day. He felt like he was like in an endless cycle of drinking to a point of excess and then depression, and then the two were related. So Dr. Ewing comes forward, and defense is like, all right, here we go. Let's ask him about the bungalow criteria.
What the hell is the bungalow?
So he's the psychiatrist, and he worked on a lot of sleepwalking cases that resulted in homicidal violence. And they found like 13 points of criteria that were common in the cases. And so defense is like, yes, science-backed information. Here we go.
Oh my God.
So point 1, attack occurred soon after the sleep onset. 2, extended period of complex motor behavior. 3, victim was loved by the attacker, and we know that he loved her at least as his sister.
It's also very convenient that most murder is committed by people who know the victim.
That's true. 4, victim was not recognized immediately. 5, attack was followed by confusion. 6, amnesia for the event. 7, history of childhood parasomnia or sleepwalking.
Oh my God.
8, no attempt to cover up the crime. 9, no apparent motivation for the attack. 10, extended period of personal stress. 11, poor sleep patterns in preceding nights. 12, no history of violence. 13, no alcohol use. So they're like, he meets all the criteria except for the last one. He used alcohol heavily. And defense is like, but wait a second. Wouldn't drinking excessively make him more likely to sleepwalk because he's able to enter a deeper sleep?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they're like,
some freaking
here we go.
hokey-pokey science bullshit.
So then prosecution calls their own expert, Dr. Wade Myers. He's a professor of psychiatry. So he's like, okay, jury, we're going to talk about the sleep stages, like stage 1, you get the alpha waves, stage 2, and about an hour to 2 hours after falling asleep is when you go into a deep sleep.
REM.
And yeah, so he explained that sleepwalking occurs in the deeper stages of sleep. And his whole argument here is like, he's wide awake minutes before the crime. You can't go from wide awake to sleepwalking in a few minutes.
Yeah.
It doesn't match up with the timeline here.
There you go.
And he's like, okay, I think personally that sexual motivation may have played a role. I agree with you, Dr. Myers. And he's like, what happened in the closet? Like, that's not a coincidence. Like, that happened the night before, and the next morning he murdered her. Like, there is definitely some sexual motivation, sexual thing going on here. So jury is like, okay, we got to decide now. Some of the jurors are on the fence about sleepwalking, and they're like, okay, we need to figure out how long it took him to enter a state of deep sleep.
They're really seriously considering this.
They don't really know. Like,
I'm so glad
but
I've never been on a jury, but I can only imagine.
So they're like,
I would never make it.
Again, they're talking about the timeline. They're like, okay, Randy texts Brooke at 7:55. She comes home at 8:35. That's 40 minutes. Okay. He wakes up. They speak for a few minutes. And then the attack begins before 8:49 because that's when we know the screaming was heard.
Did the defense try to say that he was asleep while talking too?
The defense is saying, Dr. Ewing said, no. Someone can sleepwalk 10 to 15 minutes after falling asleep, which
Show me the literature.
Show me the literature. So he's saying basically, no, you can enter deep sleep within 10, 15 minutes. Like, you can start sleepwalking at that point. So the jury's not fooled. They're like, okay, after looking at this timeline, like, there's no way he fell asleep and was able to sleepwalk at this point. Like, he was just up. He remembers talking to Brooke. Like, he remembers that part clearly. And, they're like, all right, we figured it out. Like, he's guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Randy is sentenced to life without possibility of parole. Oof. So Randy in 2021 appealed his conviction and sentence. And he said that his attorneys didn't provide a proper defense in advising him to plead insanity. And so he's appealing. He does not want to be in prison. So I don't remember who it was in the documentary, but he was talking to someone and he said, I'm reading Harry Potter while I'm in jail. And he's like, it reminds me of Azkaban. Like, I'm just sitting there, like, having to reflect on everything I've done. Like, it's torture. And I'm like, it's probably the best place for you to be right now.
How could you compare yourself to Sirius Black?
No, Sirius Black is the GOAT.
Sirius Black is the GOAT.
Thank you all for joining us today. And to Brooke's family, I'm so sorry this happened. And if you guys feel inclined to sign the petition and or donate or to spread the word a little bit more, the link again is in the show notes. And this is just, an ugly, gross case. Like, I truly think this was just a excuse for a horrible act.
And if you enjoy our podcast and our social justice endeavors, feel free to support us. We are your two favorite not sister wives, but sister nurses.
Oh my God.
Review, rate, subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
Not sister wives, but sister nurses. I think that's so clever.
Anyway, thank you, Dee. That was great.
I feel like half the time you talk to me on the podcast, you're sarcastic. Is it a sarcasm or I'm edited out?
I edit out what I need to.
No.
So people don't know the true me. I'm going to call it. The time is 7:29 or 19:29 for those of you who do use military time. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll be here next Wednesday again.
And Dee will be doing the case.
Yes.
Because we alternate.
Yes, so if you only want to hear me talk.
Shut the hell up!
I'll see you in 2 weeks.
No! How could you even joke about this? That really hurt my feelings.
I love you.
No, get the hell out of here. Me and the cats are back in our bag. We're leaving.
Bye.
Bye.